Ta-doom. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today I'm doing a tier list ranking of every Netflix original movie that I've seen. I've got about 30 plus movies on this list, including the newly released Hitman, which hit Netflix today. But before I dive into this, be sure to hit that like button and comment down below your favorite Netflix original films and your least favorite. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. And if you guys want to watch movies and TV shows with me, you can do so on my Patreon. I have commentary tracks for various movies and shows, including Stranger Things and Cobra Kai, as well as exclusive live Q&As and other content coming very soon. Any support means a lot over there, so consider becoming a Film Stock patron today. Without further ado, let's rank these movies. Alright, so the tiers I have are S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. I decided to go to the basics with this, just going with the standard S through F, and the first one to kick this off out of the fully randomized list is The Devil All the Time, which came out in, I think, 2021, and it has a star-studded cast. We're talking Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan, Robert Pattinson, you've got Jason Clarke, who else? Bill Skarsgård. This movie is stacked, but it's very bizarre. It's one of the strangest movies I might have ever seen in my entire life, and it's not for the faint of heart. There's some disturbing material explored in this film. Robert Pattinson is playing this like weird Southern Baptist preacher, and he kind of talks like this, and he has a line that I always repeat. He goes, "Delusions!" It's one of my favorite lines from the movie. The weird thing about it is like none of the main stars show up for like the first 45 minutes. It's all focused on Bill Skarsgård's character. So it was a bit strange, to say the least. I will say this is like a C-tier movie. I mean, there's some moments to shine. I still look back and quote it, but it is a bizarre movie. If you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it. I don't really know who this is for. It's pretty damn dark. Moving on, we've got El Camino, a Breaking Bad film. This is Jesse's story, sort of the epilogue to the Breaking Bad universe, and I'm putting it at the top of A tier as we speak. It really does round out his story so nicely. Jesse, in contention for my outright favorite character in the Breaking Bad universe. Before I watched Better Call Saul, he was my favorite, but after that, Saul/Jimmy might be my number one, but he's in the conversation regardless, and this is a great send-off to his character. You got Todd back in the picture here as well. It gives us answers and closure with a character who really got screwed throughout all of Breaking Bad, and I'm glad that he got to have that happy ending. El Camino, definitely not as strong as something like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, but in terms of a nice little epilogue for a character, 2 thumbs up from me. Moving on, we've got Tick, Tick, Boom. This is actually my favorite of the Netflix original films. I'm putting it up there right now. It's an S-tier film in my mind. It should have won Andrew Garfield his first ever Oscar because this movie is powerful stuff. It reminds you to chase your dreams, never give up, never settle for a life that you don't envision for yourself, and it really is a movie that whenever I rewatch it, it can re-spark that fire, that passion inside of me. It's got a soundtrack that I listen to constantly, and Lin-Manuel Miranda directs the hell out of this one. Tick, Tick, Boom is a winner for me, and it should be an Oscar winner for Andrew Garfield. It's a damn shame, truly, but that movie, S-tier, special stuff right there. Moving on, we've got The Irishman, a movie that is long as hell, undeniably, and that was the big talking point about this movie. It also uses the de-aging technology for De Niro and Pesci. In terms of Scorsese films, and his mob epics in particular, it's not the strongest. I prefer Goodfellas absolutely over this, but this was a nice sort of like final moment, I feel, for Scorsese when it comes to the mob movies with De Niro, Pesci, and even got Pacino in the picture here. It was kind of like a send-off to that era of filmmaking, that genre in a way, and honestly, I would say this is an A-tier film. I'll put it right behind El Camino. I rarely ever think about revisiting this one, just because it's a draining watch. We're talking about a 3.5 hour time commitment here. You could watch almost the whole season of television there, and there's just something about sitting down for one specific movie for that long where inevitably certain scenes are going to drag on. But I feel like The Irishman, like I said, is a nice send-off to the mob films with De Niro and Scorsese behind the camera, so it's an A-tier film in my book. It's also one that I quoted a lot when it came out. 2019, both these movies came out, and I actually have reviews on the channel. If you want to find some old school film stock content, you can do some searching. I have reviews of both of these movies on my channel. Moving on, we've got Damsel, which came out this year. This stars Millie Bobby Brown, and there's a lot of potential with the premise here. It's at times a sort of one-location horror film where the main character, played by Millie Bobby Brown, is trying to escape this dragon. It evolves into something else that gets a little too generic and in my opinion. Millie Bobby Brown gives a great performance. Some of the visuals hit, others are very miss. It's a bit all over the place at times, and despite a strong start in like a 20-minute window where I was like on the edge of my seat, the movie ends up falling in that generic straight-to-streaming vibe, even though it has its solid moments. I'll go, this is tough, I'll go C tier above Devil All the Time just because, again, there's like 25 minutes of this movie where I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, wow, are we about to just have Millie Bobby Brown running from a dragon? Obviously, that wasn't the whole thing, but if it just committed to the one genre, like the one location horror film, I would have been all in. Moving on, we've got The Guilty, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. This is where he's a 911 operator. It came out, I think, in 2021? I want to say 2021. And the first two acts of this movie rule. It kind of falls flat by the end, but the premise alone had me sold. I would say it's a C-tier film. I would go at the top right now. Jake Gyllenhaal, he's not really going to give a bad performance. The man is consistent as hell, and he proves that here. And the concept will have you on the edge of your seat. It's a thriller by nature, but I do remember it fizzling out by the time we got to that third act. Moving on, though, we've got Hitman, which I just watched today. The movie is on Netflix right now. It had a brief theatrical run. It stars Glen Powell, directed by Richard Linklater, to Dazed and Confused, the Before trilogy, School of Rock. On paper, I should have loved this movie, but I walk out pretty underwhelmed, honestly. It's solid, don't get me wrong. Glen Powell cements himself, or continues to cement himself, I should say, as a leading man in Hollywood, and the ideas in this film really neat. Like, there are some clever moments for sure. There's some witty dialogue that had me chuckling, but by the time the credits rolled, it felt pretty anticlimactic, and I looked back at the movie and I was like, did that play out like a generic episode of some crime drama on network TV, like a CBS show? It kind of did, and it just didn't have that flair to me. Like, yes, Glen Powell's a movie star, and he carries this movie. He's playing a bunch of different personalities really well throughout the film, and it's well paced, but by the time the credits rolled, I just didn't feel that emotional impact that I thought. Maybe I went in with too high of expectations. Maybe I expected one thing and got another. I was really expecting more, especially with the rave reviews early on for this film, and it ended up just being fine, but it didn't really stand out in a crowd of straight-to-streaming films. There are others that I deem much better than this, so I'm gonna go C tier with Hitman right now. You know, as much as I would love to say I really dug this movie, I will put it like right here at the top of C tier, because I'd watch it over the other movies I have on that list. Glen Powell alone is enough to maybe revisit this film, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and maybe that's on me, but I didn't love this one by any means. Moving on, we got The Trial of Chicago 7. I'm going B tier with this. This is Aaron Sorkin directing and writing. He obviously wrote Moneyball and The Social Network, A Few Good Men. He's one of the best screenwriters out there, maybe my personal favorite. The Trial of Chicago 7 is based on true events. It's almost a political thriller in a way as you're watching this court case unfold. I love a good courtroom drama, and this cast is stellar. You've got Jeremy Strong, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen. Like, this movie is really well done. Again, not a movie I really find myself going back to revisit, but it's like a solid 4 out of 5 for me. There's a lot of tension in this film, some heated scenes, but it's an important watch, and I really dug The Trial of Chicago 7. I haven't seen it in years, though. It's one of those 2020 movies that kind of feels like fake in a way, just because 2020 feels like a really just bizarre simulation of a year. Speaking of that year, we got Mank. I wasn't a fan. This might be Fincher's worst movie. Alien 3 technically exists, but for me, Mank was not it. I'm going D tier with Mank. I mean, this movie was a snoozer. I'm not a huge fan of Citizen Kane. I know, you know, that it's deemed the greatest movie of all time by a lot of people. This is a movie about the making of Citizen Kane. I will never revisit this. It was a hard watch. Like, as I was watching Mank, it felt like a chore to get through. I will commend the movie, though, for having some unique sound design. It's shot in black and white, so it has the feel of a classic film, which was the intention. It just was not at all my cup of tea. Moving on, we got The Unforgivable. I'm putting this in F tier. This movie is very forgettable. It's not memorable. John Bernthal shows up, I think, at some point, but I barely remember this movie. I went through a phase, and like, I think this was 2021 as well, where I watched tons of like new movies that went straight to streaming, and I was just reviewing everything. And this was one of those movies. It's one of the most forgettable movies on this list. I could barely tell you anything about it except that I wasn't a fan at all. Next we have Maestro, a movie that I initially gave, I think, a 4 out of 5, but the more I've sat with it, the more I've thought about it, it's regressed a bit for me. That being said, I won't deny the brilliance of Bradley Cooper's performance. I know it's become popular to hate on him, but he is one of the best actors working today, in my opinion. He doesn't have that Oscar. I think he'll get it one day. But the conducting scene alone, where it's like a, 8-minute take, it's brilliant stuff. And to me, Carey Mulligan is the real standout here. I feel like she could have won Best Actress. She's the heart of this film. I will put this in the back of B tier. As hot of a take as that is, I know it's become really popular to hate on Maestro, but it's not one that I rewatch or plan to ever rewatch, frankly. But it was really well handled, in my opinion, and Cooper's performance paired with Carey Mulligan, I gotta go B tier with it. I still maintain that it is a solid watch, though it's only one of those films that you can watch once, in my opinion. Next we have Don't Look Up, a movie that was highly divisive when it came out, directed by Adam McKay, starring Leo and Jennifer Lawrence. The film's hilarious. It's a commentary on modern-day society and basically how absurd political parties are nowadays. Like, this movie poked fun at everybody. It's satirical by nature. Leo should have been nominated for an Oscar, in my opinion. And yeah, Jonah Hill has some hilarious moments. You also got Meryl Streep in here. It's by no means a movie that I revisit often, but I think it was wildly overhated. I'm going to put it at the top of B tier over The Trial of Chicago 7. Don't Look Up, solid watch. I actually was able to see this one in a theater, even though it went straight to Netflix. Next we have The Gray Man, a movie starring Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans and Ana de Armas that's highly generic. Like, I saw this one in the theater as well at an early screening, summer of 2022, and I was like dozing off watching it. It was supposed to be like this action epic film directed by the Russo brothers. It wasn't that. I look back and the movie is really generic. Yes, it has a sweet, unconventional, father-daughter trope. Father figure comes into a young girl's life and has that relationship with her. That was the standout of the film. The action was fine, but honestly, I would say The Gray Man's a C-tier film. I would put it probably like near the middle of the pack, maybe even Damsel above it. Really just have not thought about this movie since it came out. And unfortunately, a lot of straight-to-Netflix films have that effect where you watch it and it's like serviceable entertainment in the moment, but then a year or two later, like, what even happened in that movie? That's the case with a lot of these films. Moving on, we've got Beckett. This is another one of those movies. I have no clue why I watched it. I did a review on my YouTube channel for some reason. It stars John David Washington. It was really just out there. I'm putting it in F tier. Probably the back of F tier right now. It was hard to get through. It tries to be like this political thriller, but nothing's ever really happening. It's basically just John David Washington walking the entire movie, and I'm not kidding. Has anyone watching this video actually seen Beckett? Please let me know down below. It's one of the most forgettable films I might have seen ever. Next we have Vivo, which Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the music for. It's an animated film that went straight to Netflix, and the one thing that I remember from this film is the lyric. It's like, M-I-A-M-I, running out of time, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. That was trending on TikTok for a while, but that's been stuck in my head for years. It's one of those songs that'll like rotate through my brain. I'll sing it randomly, and then that'll be that. The movie is fine. A lot of these Netflix films are like okay entertainment. It's definitely not Pixar or Walt Disney Animation. I'm putting it in C tier, probably maybe near the back. Right about there seems appropriate. I mean, Vivo, cute kids movie, not much else. Next we got Spencer Confidential, starring Mark Wahlberg. Post Malone has a brief role in this film. This is an F tier movie. I'm putting it there right now. I'll put it like right here in the back. It's probably actually more watchable than both those movies, even though they're all bad. Look, this is AI generated, and I know I hate to say that, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if years from now documents were released and they were like, yeah, Spencer Confidential was written by a computer. It's got no standout action scenes. It's one of those movies I watch like late at night, really right when the pandemic started, so life as we know it was kind of just on pause. This movie, highly forgettable, and you've seen it. If you've watched any of the generic, Netflix action movies, you've seen this movie. Next we have Intrusion, another one of those movies that I watched in 2021 for no real reason other than to do a review of. I don't know what was in my brain at that point in time. I will say this is an F tier movie, and it's actually the worst on this list. Intrusion stunk. It stunk. It's one of those movies that tries to be like a home invasion thriller, but just falls flat in every sense of the word. Not a single interesting character. Every reveal is predictable. I trudged through this movie. It is trash, unfortunately. Next, we've got The Harder They Fall. This is a movie that people so desperately wanted to like make out to be better than it was, and in my opinion, it was so average at best. Yeah, it's got Idris Elba, Jonathan Majors, who we don't talk about anymore, and a slew of other famous actors, actresses who are escaping my mind. Like, people were shocked with the reveal that happened in this movie. It's whatever. Like, yeah, it's some highly stylized action. To me, it was just trying to rip off Django Unchained and didn't really have any likable characters. So yeah, I would say this is damn near D tier for me at the top of, which is a hot take, I'm aware, but it's just funny to me how every single year we probably get 5 to 10 Netflix movies that people like gas up in the moment, and then years later no one ever discusses. I haven't heard someone bring up The Harder They Fall since it came out, which I think was in fall of 2021, and when it came out, if you went on Twitter, you would have sworn that this movie was going to win Best Picture or something. People were like, oh, that's the coolest action movie ever, Westerns are back, baby, and like, no, I haven't heard a single person mention this movie, and the fact that the leading actor is in hot water nowadays probably isn't helping its case in terms of being one that people will go back to revisit years from now. So, The Harder They Fall? Yeah. Next we got Red Notice. This movie was fine when I first watched it. But again, like as I look at everything else, I'm sort of tearing off. I can't really go too high with it. Ryan Reynolds is the standout here. The Rock is playing himself as he always did during this era. And Gal Gadot's okay, but Ryan Reynolds is really the draw here. It's got those National Treasure vibes, but by no means is it as charming or even self-aware. There's some noticeably off CGI in this film. I would say Red Notice, if I'm being honest, I'll go D tier, top of. There was a point in time, I think I gave the movie like maybe a 3. I don't know what I initially gave this movie because it was so long ago. As I sit here talking about it today, I will never watch Red Notice again. It is another one of those movies that just feels pumped out by Netflix that made money or did it. We'll never know with Netflix. Next we have Glass Onion, which is the second Knives Out film. I still prefer the original Knives Out, but Glass Onion is an A-tier movie in my opinion. I'm gonna say it's actually going right? No, I'll put it at the back of A tier because I think I prefer the movies that are in there right now. But Glass Onion, clever, it's got a star-studded cast. I mean, the list goes on and on with names. You got Madeline Klein, Dave Bautista, Daniel Craig returning. You got Kate Hudson. I mean, Edward Norton, for crying out loud. You got a great cast here, even Leslie Odom Jr. of Hamilton fame. I respect it because it's still got the murder mystery vibes, but it doesn't just copy-paste the story of Knives Out. It tries something new, which didn't work for everybody, but for me, I was like, okay, I can dig this. We got some flashback scenes that really gave me clarity and sold me on this premise of the film, and it was fresh. We don't really get murder mysteries right now, aside from the Knives Out films, and so bring on Wake Up Dead Man, which is the third film. I think it's starting to film soon. I'm ready for that. Glass Onion was a winner, and I'm hoping that the next film's great as well. I think they could do Knives Out moves with Benoit Blanc to the end of time. I would be there to watch every single one. Glass Onion, very strong follow-up. Next we have Extraction, starring Chris Hemsworth. This is basically Netflix's John Wick, and I know that's become kind of a generic thing to say, but it's true. It's just a dude shooting people for however long the movie is. With John Wick, I feel like there's more depth to the character. Here, there's not much to go off of. This has a really cool, like, 9-minute one-take scene, but aside from that, Extraction was surprisingly generic in my opinion. I would say it's a C-tier film right behind Hitman for me. It's entertaining, it's serviceable, it's something you can throw on late at night on Netflix and kill an hour or two easily, but it's not much else other than that. Next we have Hubie Halloween. This movie's a stinker, but it does do a good job of creating the Halloween spooky season vibes. That being said, I'll go top of F tier out of respect. You know, it's a garbage movie, but if you like Adam Sandler and all of his friends being together and that stupid humor, this might be your thing. I, again, will commend Hubie Halloween for creating the spooky season vibe. Other than that, I remember the movie being like, oh, this is an eye roller for me. Next we have The Lovebirds. This is a D tier movie. It's a step up from the F tier, just because Kumail Nanjiani is giving it his all. There's also like this weird subplot about like this cult, and I remember that distinctly. Like they're sitting in an auditorium and like it's actually a cult meeting, so movie's a bit out there for sure. I'll go top of D tier with The Lovebirds. This is again another one of those movies that I watched during the pandemic that feels like a fever dream. Like half the movies on this list I watched when the world was like shut down, and so it just feels fake looking back. It's like, did I dream that or did I actually watch that? That's the case with Lovebirds. Then we've got Marriage Story, an Oscar-nominated film. Many people say Adam Driver should have won the Oscar here. I've never been huge on Marriage Story. I watched it once in 2019. I haven't watched it since then, so my thoughts are very old when it comes to, you know, Marriage Story. I would say right now C tier for me. And I know that's kind of a hot take, but I'd put it like somewhere in the middle of C tier. Maybe like plump in the middle right here. I respect that it's a well-written movie. The performances alone carry a lot of weight, with both ScarJo and Adam Driver probably giving their career best performances. The argument scene alone, great stuff. I just remember being so depressed after the movie, I was like, I don't ever want to watch this movie again. And also, I am not from a divorced household. I have friends who were, and they resonated more with this movie. Next we have Night Teeth, which is the worst movie I've seen on this list by a lot. I'm going to put it at the back of F tier. It's hot garbage. I mean, this is filth. Like, this is actually one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I just don't know why I trudged through it, but I made a YouTube review of it. You can go find it somewhere on my channel. It's a stinker, and that's really all there is to it. It's like a vampire movie. It's so bad, though. Oh, I don't think anyone should have to sit through this movie. Next, we have The Power of the Dog, which was Oscar nominated. I think it won Best Director, but it did not win Best Picture. This was not my jam remotely. I thought it was really painfully slow-moving. This is a movie filled with deeper meanings where you can read articles and breakdowns. It just wasn't for me, period, and because of that, I'm actually going to put it in D tier. This is my list. I can do what I want. I would say, like, right here, probably. I would watch it over Mank, but it just was not at all my thing. I respect the filmmaking aspect. There's some performances that stand out. It's a gorgeous looking film, like especially the cinematography, but it was such a dry watch. Oh, I could never sit through this movie again. Sweet Girl is a stinker and contains one of the dumbest twists I've ever seen. Straight up makes no sense at all. F tier movie. I'm gonna put it probably pretty far back there, actually over these two, because at least it has like a somewhat laughable twist. Like, you can almost laugh at how stupid it is. It makes zero sense. But we've got Extraction 2, which I think is a little better than the first Extraction, so I want to put this in B tier. There's like a 20-minute prison break, and it's one take. So sick. The action is better here. I care more about the main character a bit more. His name is escaping me. That's why I keep saying Hemsworth, the main character. It's like Sam, maybe? Sam sounds right. Tyler, maybe. Maybe his name, Tyler Rake. There we go, I just found it. I'll put this in the back of B tier, actually over Maestro, because there's a really cool, like, one-take scene that ends up from, it's like, we go through a prison, onto a train, helicopters get involved. That is what these Extraction movies should be, and I hope the third one is just entirely in one take, and it's just one continuous action scene, because we know we're not really going to get much depth for the characters. The story's probably going to be pretty surface level, so just commit to the over-the-top action. I'm here for it. Next we have He's All That, starring Addison Rae and Tanner Buchanan, Robbie Keane from Cobra Kai Never Dies. This movie's laughably bad. It's also a movie that I'm aware is terrible, but I would watch it right now and enjoy it because it is such a meme. It's one of those movies that you can, like, laugh at as you're watching. I would say it's an F tier movie. It's terribly made. It's not a good movie, but it's a movie that I would, like, laugh at. So I'm gonna put it at the top of F tier because I could throw it on right now and just have a night, you know, get together with some friends, laugh, like, view it as a comedy. As a movie, very poorly made, but it is laughable, and at least we get to see glimpses of Robbie Keane as he has a little fight scene by the pool. Next we have Do Revenge, starring Maya Hawke, who plays Robin in Stranger Things. That's the main reason I watched this movie. I would say Do Revenge is a C tier movie, probably like fairly high actually. I would go like right here, right there feels appropriate, like near the middle of C tier. It's actually filmed at a campus in Georgia, a college campus, Oglethorpe, that I've been on before, so I'm familiar with it. It was like, oh, I've been there. It's one of those high school teen drama films. It has coming of age elements, but also people trying to backstab each other and having popularity contests. There's like elements of Mean Girls in a sense, so Do Revenge has its moments to shine. Maya Hawke, she does a great job in it, and there's some twists and turns you might not see coming. Next we have The Killer, the David Fincher film that really didn't do much for me, unfortunately. It stars Michael Fassbender. He plays a killer who's straight up emotionless, and the majority of this film is just Michael Fassbender's character narrating what he's doing, so we're hearing his inner monologue. I wasn't really impressed with this in terms of Fincher, the guy who made The Social Network, Fight Club, Seven, Gone Girl even. This really is lower on his filmography for me. For starters, it didn't even look like a Fincher film. It had the generic look of many of these Netflix films that just feels like it's pumped out of a machine rather than being a straight-up Fincher film. Also, I didn't connect with anything in this movie. I know that's kind of the purpose. He is playing this cold, emotionless assassin, but I didn't feel anything watching this movie, much like he himself, the character, felt nothing. I wanted to love this movie, but it really just fell flat for me. There's some moments to shine, like one hand-to-hand combat scene that worked, but yeah, The Killer just wasn't for me. I'm gonna say C tier with The Killer, and I'm not too high on it. I'd probably go like somewhere around here, like, we'll say right here. Why not, you know? And rounding out this tier list, we've got The Adam Project, which I'm gonna put in the back of A tier. This is a really sweet movie. It stars Ryan Reynolds, Mark Ruffalo, Walker Scobell, who's now Percy Jackson, And it's a very sweet film. If you've seen Onward, it's comparable in a way where you've got this father-son story at its core, but elements of brotherhood in a way. But I was tearing up by the end of this movie. It's a unique sci-fi concept, and there's like elements of Back to the Future here with, you know, Marty McFly coming face to face with his father back in the 50s. It pulled a lot from that trope, and I just really dug what we got. Yeah, it's got your typical Netflix CGI fight scenes, but there's so much heart in this film that makes up for everything else the movie lacks in. The Adam Project will pull on the heartstrings. It got me tearing up the last time I rewatched it. And Walker Scobell and Ryan Reynolds just have the best chemistry. It's a sweet movie with a real emphasis on family, and it's a winner for Netflix in my opinion. But that does it for my tier list ranking of all the Netflix original movies that I've seen. Let me know yours in the comments down below, and be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. A lot. But that'll do it. Thank you guys as always for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.